When a husband tells his wife not to attend a family reunion, most would assume it's due to logistics, space, or even drama between relatives. But for Amaka, what started as a simple rejection from her husband spiraled into a revelation that would crack open a decade of deception, pride, and betrayal. You see, Amaka wasn't just any woman. She was intelligent, graceful, and fiercely loyal. Her marriage to Chuka was once the envy of many until the cracks began to show. And when she was explicitly told not to attend the family reunion, something in her snapped. That was the beginning of a storm Chuka never saw coming. Amaka sat at the edge of their neatly arranged marital bed, staring at the open wardrobe. Chuka had just left for work, and his words still echoed in her ears. Amaka, you don't need to come to the reunion this year. I'll go alone. My parents, you know how they are. Let's avoid any stress. She didn't argue then. She only nodded slowly, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But inside her, something boiled, not because of the reunion itself, but the way he said it. Cold. Calculated. Like it was already decided. For 10 years, she had done everything to please him, moved to ABA to support his startup, endured his demanding family, and even put her career on hold when he asked. She believed in partnership, in sacrifice. But now, she felt like a stranger in her own marriage. Later that evening, as she cleaned the living room, her phone buzzed. It was from one of Chuka's cousins, Kamsi. Hey, sis Amaka, will you be at the reunion this weekend? We've missed you, oh. That's when it clicked. Chuka had told her the family didn't want her there. But the family clearly did. So who was lying? Over the next few days, Amaka observed him closely. Chuka had become secretive, stepping outside to take calls, deleting messages, traveling for meetings without explanations. That week, she did something she hadn't done before, she followed him. On a humid Wednesday morning, she dressed plainly, hailed a kiki, and followed his car as he left for his so-called office. To her shock, he didn't go to his workplace. Instead, he drove to a quiet estate in Umuahia. She waited across the road. 2 hours passed, then Chuka emerged, not alone. A slender woman with long braids stepped out behind him, adjusting her wrapper. Chuka kissed her cheek, gave her money, then left. Amaka's heart froze. She didn't confront him immediately. She needed a plan, something that would expose him without stooping to a shouting match. She returned home and began digging. Emails, documents, even his business contacts. One thing stood out: Chuka was desperate to impress his new investor, a foreign-backed agro company executive named Mr. Kamalu. That man held the keys to Chuka's dream contract, and ironically, Amaka had met him once during a Women in Agriculture event. Suddenly, an idea formed, bold, outrageous, but perfect. The family reunion was to be held at Chuka's village compound in Abosi, a large gathering of uncles, aunties, cousins, and elders. Chuka had planned everything to perfection, or so he thought. On the morning of the event, Chuka left early. He believed Amaka was home, heartbroken. But Amaka had other plans. She dressed elegantly in a crisp sky blue lace gown, subtle makeup. On her wrist was a gold bangle, a gift from her mother before she passed. Her hair was packed neatly, and she exuded dignity. But her most shocking accessory? She was accompanied by Mr. Kamalu himself. The investor, a dignified gentleman in his 50s with a sharp mind and a fondness for humility, had taken kindly to Amaka when she reached out days earlier. She told him she wanted to introduce him to her husband, but not at the office. At the family reunion. At first, he was puzzled. But as Amaka gently peeled back layers of the truth, including how Chuka had hidden the reunion from her while pursuing both a deal and another woman, Mr. Kamala saw an opportunity to understand the character of the man he was about to trust. So, arm in arm, Amaka and Mr. Kamala stepped into the large compound in Abosi. The reunion was in full swing. Music, laughter, grills smoking, elders talking, children running. Everyone paused as the pair entered. All eyes turned. Chuka was seated under a canopy with some elders. When he saw them, his smile dropped instantly. Amaka? What are you doing here? You told me not to come, she said coolly. But I figured your boss deserved to see your roots. Chuka stammered. Boss? What? Before he could gather his thoughts, Mr. Kamalu extended a handshake. So, you're the Chuka I've been hearing about. Pleased to meet you in your hometown. A murmur passed through the crowd. Someone whispered, Boss Ku? Which kind wallaby this? Elder Enz, Chuka's uncle, motioned everyone to calm down. But the tension was thick. Mr. Kamala looked around and smiled politely. I like to know the people I do business with, not just the professional side, but their personal integrity. Chuka's wife here is one of the most intelligent women I've met in months. You're a lucky man. Chuka couldn't speak. His mouth was dry, his throat tight. Shall we sit? Amaka said gently, as if nothing was wrong. They sat, and the reunion carried on, but the damage was already done. People whispered. Questions buzzed. Why had Chuka lied? Why wasn't his wife invited? Why did she come with his boss? As the sun dipped behind the tall palm trees and the reunion wound down, Chuka approached Amaka as she stood near the car, thanking a few aunties for their compliments. You humiliated me, he hissed. No, she replied, locking eyes with him. You humiliated yourself when you thought I was invisible. She turned to leave, but paused. You know the funny thing, Chuka? I wasn't even coming. Until you told me not to. That's when I knew something was wrong. Next time, respect your wife before she shows the world who you really are. As she stepped into Mr. Kamala's car and they drove off, Chuka stood alone, surrounded by distant relatives and judging eyes. That night, Amaka didn't sleep a betrayed woman. She slept as someone who had finally reclaimed her dignity. But this was only the beginning. Chuka's lies had only started to unravel. And what Amaka was about to discover next would expose a secret far bigger than a cheating husband. 3 days after the reunion, Amaka sat in her home office, fingers drumming the table, eyes locked on her laptop screen. She had barely spoken to Chuka since the incident. He'd returned from the reunion late, humiliated and furious, but too ashamed to say much. The house felt colder than ever. But Amaka wasn't done. She knew Chuka was hiding more, and now, she had the clarity and determination to dig deeper. Using his old USB drive, which he had carelessly left in one of his suits, she discovered dozens of confidential documents. Business contracts, internal memos, and something strange, a large unexplained withdrawal from the company account. 8.2 million Nigerian nairas. Labeled only as external consultancy. Her instincts flared. She reached out to a friend in accounting who owed her a favor. Within 24 hours, Amaka confirmed her suspicion. The consultant was none other than the woman Chuka had kissed at the estate in Umuahia. Her name? Nkiru Ofogbu. On paper, she was registered as an agricultural strategist. In reality, she ran a fake shell company that Chuka had been funneling money through. And now it was tied to Mr. Kamalu's investment firm. Amaka's blood ran cold. Chuka hadn't just lied. He was committing fraud, on a scale that could land him in jail and destroy their entire livelihood. Including hers. She stared at their wedding photo on the bookshelf, a younger version of herself in white lace, holding Chuka's hand. What had happened to them? Her phone rang. It was Mr. Kamalu. Amaka, I had our legal team look into your husband's contracts. We've found irregularities. I feared as much, she said quietly. Do you have evidence? Yes. I do. There was a long pause. Can you come in tomorrow? We might need your statement. I'll be there. She hung up and exhaled. Her hands were trembling. Not from fear, but from a painful kind of liberation. Later that evening, Chuka came home. "We need to talk," she said. "I'm not in the mood, Amaka." "Well, you'll want to hear this." Mr. Kamalu called. Chuka froze mid-step. "He's investigating the fraudulent withdrawals." He turned sharply. "What are you talking about?" "Nkiru, 8.2 million Nigerian nairas. Does that ring a bell?" His face turned pale. "You went through my things?" "No. I went through the lies that could ruin us both. But I won't let you drag me down." For a moment, he looked like he might explode. But instead, he slumped onto the couch, defeated. "I needed the money," he muttered. "The farm project wasn't moving fast. Investors were pressuring me. I made a mistake." "No, Chuka," she said coldly. "A mistake is forgetting to send an email. This was a betrayal." "So what now? You'll report me?" "I don't need to. You did that yourself." She walked away, her steps slow, controlled, the footsteps of a woman who had finally learned the power of her silence. The next morning, Amaka arrived at Mr. Kamalu's office in Enugu. The building was quiet and professional, a stark contrast to the chaos unraveling in her personal life. A young secretary ushered her into a glass-walled conference room where Mr. Kamalu and two legal officers were already waiting. She laid out everything: the USB, the fake consultancy company, the transfers, the photos of Nkiru and Chuka, and even the timestamps of his visits. Her voice was steady, but her chest burned with every word. When she finished, Mr. Kamalu nodded slowly. "You've done something many wouldn't have the courage to do, Amaka." "I didn't come here to destroy him," she replied. "I came here to stop him before he destroys everyone else." The legal officer, a woman named Ifunanya, leaned forward. "Would you be willing to testify, if it comes to that?" Amaka hesitated. "Testify? Against the father of her children? The man she once vowed to stand by?" "Yes," she said finally. "If that's what it takes for the truth to come out." Back at home, the atmosphere had become unbearable. Chuka barely spoke. The children were away at Amaka's sister's house for the week, and the silence between husband and wife stretched like a blade between them. One night, Chuka broke it. "I suppose you're happy now." Amaka looked up from her book. "Happy? What part of this feels like victory to you? You could have just left. Why involve my boss? Why humiliate me?" "Because you lied, Chuka. You lied and stole and tried to erase me from your life. And worse, you made me question my worth. So what now? You want a divorce?" The question lingered in the air. "I want the truth," she said softly. "Not just the truth about Nkiru or the money. I want to know, when did you stop loving me?" He didn't answer immediately. Then he whispered, "The truth is, I don't even know." Those words hurt more than betrayal. They were the confession of a man who had lost his compass, his purpose, and maybe himself. That night, Amaka slept in the guest room. The next week brought legal summons, bank audits, and a company-wide freeze on transactions. Mr. Kamalu's team moved fast. The case was now public. Chuka's name was under investigation, and the whispers in their neighborhood grew louder. But something strange began to happen. People started seeing Amaka differently. Not as the quiet, obedient wife, but as the woman who stood up when it mattered. Her grace in handling the storm gave strength to other women in her church, her community. Still, Chuka refused to take full responsibility. He wallowed in shame, locking himself in the study for hours. But Amaka didn't console him anymore. This was a mess he needed to confront on his own. Then one morning, a letter arrived. It wasn't from the bank. Or the court. It was from Nkiru. If he drags me down, I'm taking everything with me, it read. He promised me more than money, he promised me a future. Amaka folded the letter carefully, a heavy weight returning to her chest. Because now she knew. This was more than fraud. It was blackmail. And the storm was far from over. The sun rose over the quiet neighborhood as Amaka stepped out into the compound, letter in hand. The morning air was thick with anxiety. Inside, Chuka sat hunched over the dining table, dark circles beneath his eyes, fingers twitching beside a half-empty mug of tea. She placed the letter in front of him without a word. He read it slowly. His breath caught. She said if you go down, she goes down with you, Amaka said, arms folded. I believe her. Chuka swallowed hard. She's bluffing. She has bank records, hotel bookings, your voice notes. She's not bluffing, she's bitter. And desperate. He covered his face with both hands. God, what have I done? Amaka sat opposite him, steady and silent. You didn't just betray me, Chuka. You built your whole ambition on a lie. And now, someone else is holding your freedom in their hands. He looked up at her, eyes glossy. Do you hate me? She paused. No. I pity you. She stood. I'm taking the kids and moving to my sister's. I'll send the lawyer's address. We'll figure out custody, but I won't be your shield anymore. Amaka, please, don't leave me now, he pleaded. I stayed when you were broke. When your parents mocked me. When you cried after failed contracts. I stayed even when you lost direction. But I won't stay when you lose yourself. Chuka reached out, but she stepped away. As she packed her last bag and loaded it into the car, he followed her outside. Tell them the truth, she said, sliding into the driver's seat. Not because of me. But because there's still time to be a man your children won't be ashamed of. She drove away without looking back. 2 months later, the news broke. Chuka voluntarily submitted his records to the authorities and confessed to the fraudulent transactions. Nkiru, in turn, was arrested for running multiple fake consultancy fronts. The scandal rocked their town and shook the agri-financing world. But Chuka avoided jail time. With Amaka's documentation and Mr. Kamala's testimony, he struck a deal, restitution and a permanent ban from executive roles. He lost his company, his respect, and most of his social standing. Amaka, on the other hand, blossomed. She resumed her work in sustainable farming initiatives and became a sought-after speaker for women's financial independence. When a reporter asked her what gave her the strength to stand up, she simply said, "The day he told me not to come to the family reunion was the day I realized I didn't need permission to take back my life." She never spoke ill of Chuka publicly. She never needed to. The truth had already done that for her. In many marriages, betrayal doesn't always come wrapped in violence or shouting. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, in exclusion, in secrets, in silences that scream louder than words. Amaka's story reminds us. A woman's silence is not weakness. Her grace is not naivety. And when she finally rises, she rises like a storm. So next time someone tells you, "Don't come," ask yourself, what are they trying to hide?